Commander Ji-hoon Park pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation deck. His breath fogged the window as he watched 12 massive ships appear out of nowhere. They just materialized in space like ghosts becoming real. These were not human ships. Captain Minho, Ji-hoon said into his radio. His voice shook a little. Are we recording this? Yes, sir. Every camera we have is watching. Earth is seeing this too. The alien ships were beautiful and terrifying. The biggest one looked like it was made of crystal and ice. It was as big as Earth's moon. Ji-hoon had never seen anything so magnificent and so scary at the same time. Suddenly, a voice filled the space around their station. It came from everywhere at once. The voice was cold like winter wind and had no feeling in it at all. We are the Galactic Tribunal. We speak for 12 civilizations across the galaxy. We have watched your species called human for 400 of your years. Dr. Soyeon Kim floated next to Ji-hoon. She was Earth's best diplomat, the person they sent to talk to aliens if aliens ever came. Now, aliens were here, and she looked very small next to their huge ships. We have studied you, the voice continued. We have seen your wars. 700 wars in your short history. We have seen how you destroyed forests and oceans on your own planet. We have seen how you fight each other over small things like land and resources. Ji-hoon felt his stomach drop. This did not sound like a friendly visit, but we barely left our solar system. Dr. Soyeon shouted into space. How can you judge us for things we might do? We haven't hurt anyone out here. The alien voice was quiet for a moment. Then it spoke again, even colder than before. Your nature is clear to us. When ants fight in their hill, do they ask permission from the forest? When wolves hunt in packs, do they consider the feelings of deer? You are what you are, and what you are is dangerous. Engineer Taeyeon Lee was working on his small survey ship near Pluto when the announcement came. He had been checking the ice on Pluto's surface for minerals. It was quiet work, peaceful work. He liked being alone with the stars. Your sentence is isolation, the alien voice declared. You will stay in your solar system. You cannot leave. When you learn to be peaceful, when you prove you will not harm others, maybe we will talk again. Taeyeon watched in horror as a strange light began to form at the edge of the solar system. It started as tiny sparks, like fireflies in the darkness. But the sparks grew and connected to each other. They formed a wall of light that stretched across space. No, Taeyeon whispered. He tried to start his ship's faster-than-light engine, the engine that could take him between stars in seconds. Nothing happened. The engine was dead. Back on the Earth Defense Station, Commander Ji-hoon watched the barrier grow. It was like watching a soap bubble form around their entire solar system. Except this bubble was made of energy and light, and it was trapping them inside. This is not right, Dr. Soyeon said. Tears floated in the zero gravity around her eyes. We came to space to explore, to learn. We wanted to meet other civilizations and be friends. The alien voice spoke one last time. Your intentions do not matter. Only your nature matters. You are violent because violence is what you know. You are destructive because destruction is what you do. This barrier will keep you contained until you change what you are. The crystalline ships began to fade away, disappearing as suddenly as they had arrived. But the barrier remained. It pulsed with soft light, beautiful and terrible dot. Captain Minho's voice crackled over the radio from his ship near Mars. Commander, I'm reading the barrier extends all the way around us. We're completely cut off. No way in, no way out. Ji-hoon looked out at the barrier. It was actually quite pretty, like the aurora that danced over Earth's poles. But pretty or not, it was a prison wall. Engineer Taeyeon tried his radio, calling back to Earth. Earth Control, this is Survey Ship 7. I'm trapped out here by Pluto. My jump drive is completely dead. I can't get home. We know, Taeyeon came, the reply. Everyone's drives are dead. We're all trapped together. Dr. Soyen wiped her floating tears away. 4 billion people, she said quietly. 4 billion humans, and they've locked us in our own backyard like children who can't behave. Commander Ji-hoon put his hand on her shoulder. Maybe they're right, he said. Maybe we are too violent. Maybe we do need to change. Or maybe, Dr. Soen said, looking out at the beautiful, terrible barrier, we need to find another way. The barrier hummed softly in the darkness of space, keeping humanity locked away from the stars they had dreamed of reaching. Earth continued to spin, Mars continued its orbit, and the humans inside their cosmic prison began to realize they would need to become something completely different if they ever wanted to see the galaxy again. The age of isolation had begun. Captain Sunwoo Nam pushed himself gently through the floating laboratory. His boots made soft magnetic clicks as they found metal surfaces to grip. Outside the small windows, the asteroid series spun slowly beneath them. 50 years had passed since the aliens locked humanity inside their solar system. Sunwoo was young when the barrier went up. Now he had gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. His grandfather had been one of the fleet commanders trapped during the Day of Judgment. The old man used to tell stories about the time before, when humans dreamed of traveling between stars. Dr. Yuna Sunwoo called to the woman working at the far end of the lab. Show me those numbers again. Dr. Yuna Choi looked up from her quantum computer. Her hair floated around her head like a dark cloud. She had been working on this problem for 10 years. Everyone said she was crazy. Everyone said it was impossible. Come look at this, she said, excitement making her voice high. I think I figured it out. Sunwoo floated over to her workstation. The computer screen showed complex mathematics that hurt his head to look at. Numbers and symbols that described how space and time worked. If we cannot go to the stars, Dr. Yuna said, then we make the stars come to us. She waved her hand and a three-dimensional image appeared in the air between them. It showed their solar system, with the sun in the center and all the planets in their orbits. Then it showed other stars, far away. Look, she said, pointing at the nearest star. Proxima Centauri is 4 light-years away. With our fastest ships, it would take us decades to get there. But what if we could make it closer? Sunwoo frowned. Stars don't move, Dr. Yuna. They're fixed in space. No, they're not. Her eyes sparkled with the joy of discovery. Stars move through space all the time. Very slowly, but they move. What if we could make them move faster? What if we could pull them toward us? She changed the image. Now it showed tiny black dots around the distant star. These are micro-singularities, she explained. Very small black holes. Each one has the mass of a small planet, but they're only the size of marbles. We create them artificially and position them around a target star. Sunwoo watched as the image showed the tiny black holes forming a pattern around the star. The black holes create gravity fields. Dr. Yuna continued. We use them to pull on space itself. Not the star directly, but the space around the star. We compress the distance between our solar system and theirs. The image showed the space between the two stars shrinking, like someone folding a piece of paper. You want to fold space? Sunwoo asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Exactly. We cannot travel faster than light because the aliens killed our jump drives. But they never said we couldn't rearrange our neighborhood. If we can't go to the stars, we bring the stars to us. Sunwoo stared at the floating image. It was beautiful and terrifying. How long would this take? Decades for each star system, Dr. Yuna admitted. Maybe 50 years to move one star significantly closer. But once we start, we can work on multiple stars at the same time. What would we need? Dr. Yuna's smile faded. Everything. Every human settlement. Every resource. Every person. This would be the biggest project in human history. We would need to build huge machines, create artificial black holes, position them perfectly in space, Sunwoo thought about the human settlements scattered across their solar system. There were underground cities on Mars, where families had lived for generations. There were floating colonies in Jupiter's upper atmosphere, harvesting gases from the giant planet. There were mining stations like this one, pulling metals and ice from asteroids. Would it work? He asked. I think so, Dr. Yuna said. The math works. The physics works. We just need to build it. Sunwoo made a decision that would change human history. Send the proposal to Earth. Send it to Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all the colonies. Let everyone see what you've discovered. Within days, Dr. Yuna's idea spread through human space like wildfire. Some people called it brilliant, others called it insane. But everyone understood what it meant. For 50 years, humans had been trapped like animals in a cage. They had grown up, had children, lived their lives inside the alien barrier. Many had given up hope of ever seeing the galaxy. Now, Dr. Yuna was offering them something new. Not escape from their prison, but a way to make their prison bigger. The response came quickly. The Mars Council voted to support the project. The Jupiter Collective offered their gas harvesting technology. The asteroid miners promised all the metals they could dig from space rocks. Captain Sunwoo found himself in charge of the greatest construction project humans had ever attempted. They called it the Stellar Reach Initiative. Engineers began designing machines that could create black holes. Physicists calculated exactly where to place them around distant stars. Construction crews started building massive space platforms that could operate for decades without human supervision. Dr. Unison said as they watched the first construction ships leave Ceres, "What if the aliens don't like what we're doing?" She smiled. "They told us to stay in our solar system. We're staying." They never said anything about rearranging the furniture. The work began. Humanity had learned to turn their prison into a workshop. Admiral Hun Wukong had never seen anything like it. He stood on the bridge of the massive space platform called New Sol, watching thousands of tiny lights dance around a distant star. The lights were so small he needed telescopes to see them. But each one contained the power to destroy planets. 5 years had passed since the aliens trapped humanity in their solar system. Hyunwoo was born inside the barrier. He had never known a time when humans could travel to other stars. But today, that might change. "Dr. Gion," he called to the woman at the control station. "Are we ready?" Dr. Gion Park looked up from her instruments. She was the smartest person he had ever met. For 25 years, she had worked on this project. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes still sparkled with excitement. "All systems are ready, Admiral. The gravitational array is in position around Proxima Centauri." Hanwoo looked at the display screen. It showed their target star, the closest star to their own sun. Around it, like tiny fireflies, thousands of artificial black holes waited for commands. Each black hole was smaller than a marble, but it weighed as much as a small planet. "Begin the test," Hyanwoo ordered. Dr. Jian's fingers moved across her. "Controls. Activating gravitational anchors now." On the screen, the tiny lights around Proxima Centauri began to move. They formed patterns, like dancers in space. Each black hole pulled on the fabric of space itself, creating invisible forces that stretched across the emptiness between stars. Chief Engineer Minseo, you watched her instruments carefully. "Gravitational fields are stable," she reported. "No dangerous fluctuations detected." Hyunwoo held his breath. They had spent decades building this system. Entire generations of humans had worked to create the machines needed to make artificial black holes. Children had grown up knowing their whole lives would be spent on this one project. Beginning space-time compression, Dr. Gigan announced. This was the moment of truth. The theory said that by positioning the black holes correctly, they could squeeze the space between their solar system and Proxima Centauri, not move the stars themselves, but fold the emptiness between them like closing an accordion. At first, Nothing seemed to happen. The stars looked the same. Space looked the same. But the instruments told a different story. Distance reduction. Detected, Chief Engineer Minseo called out. The space between Sol and Proxima Centauri is compressing by 0.01%. It was tiny, almost nothing, but it was working. Continued the sequence, Hyun-woo ordered. Hours passed. The black holes continued their dance around the distant star. Slowly, invisibly, the space between the two star systems grew smaller, not by moving anything, but by convincing space itself to take up less room. Commander Dong-Yoon Shin was watching from Mars when the first reports came in. He sat in the Mars Defense Grid, a military base built inside one of the planet's deep canyons. For 75 years, Mars had been humanity's second home. Millions of people lived in underground cities, growing food in artificial light and breathing recycled air. Commander, his communication officer called out. We're receiving confirmation from New Seoul. The test is successful. Dong-Yoon could hardly believe it. They actually moved a star. Not moved, sir. They compressed the space between our systems. Proxima Centauri is now measurably closer to us than it was this morning. Across Mars, people began to celebrate. In the underground cities, families who had never seen Earth's sky danced in the corridors. Children who had been born on Mars and never known any other world suddenly understood that there might be other worlds to visit. On Earth, the celebrations were even bigger. In New York, people filled the streets, despite the alien barrier that still glowed faintly in the sky above them. In Tokyo, families gathered on rooftops to look up at stars that were now, technically, a little bit closer. Back on New Seoul, Admiral Han-woo watched the final readings come in. The test had worked perfectly. They had compressed the space between two star systems by a tiny amount, but it was enough to prove the concept worked. Dr. Gion, he said, how long until we can make a significant reduction in distance? She smiled. At this rate, we can bring Proxima Centauri 50% closer in about 30 years. And once we perfect the technique, we can work on multiple stars simultaneously. Chief Engineer Minseo looked up from her station. Admiral, we're receiving messages from across human space. Every colony wants to contribute to expanding the project. Hyun-woo nodded. This was just the beginning. They had proven that humans could reshape space itself. They couldn't leave their solar system, but they could bring other star systems to them. Commander Dong-Yoon sent a message from Mars to Earth Command. If the aliens want to keep us in a cage, he said, we'll just have to make the cage bigger. The message was repeated across human space, from the ice mines of Europa to the floating cities of Venus. Humanity had found a way to turn their prison into a tool. They would bring the galaxy to them, one star at a time. The great work had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. Fleet Admiral Seojin Han was having his morning coffee when the emergency message arrived. He was sitting in his private quarters aboard the massive starship Gyeongbok, looking over the day's work schedule. Today, they were supposed to move another star system closer to their growing network. Admiral, the voice came through his communication device with panic. We have an urgent transmission from outside our solar system. Seojin set down his coffee and walked to the bridge. 120 years had passed since the aliens locked humanity inside their solar system. Seojin was the great-grandson of people who remembered the old days, but for him, this work of moving stars was normal life. What do we have? He asked Captain Yoon-ha Woo, his second in command. Captain Yoon-ha pulled up the message on the main screen. The voice that came through was high and frightened, speaking in broken human language. Unknown species. Your star has appeared in our territory. This is impossible. Stars do not move. What have you done? Seojin smiled. After decades of work, someone had finally noticed. Captain Onya, show me our current star map. The main screen, filled with a three-dimensional image of local space. It was beautiful. Dozens of star systems clustered together like jewels on a necklace. Each star had been carefully moved over the past 50 years, brought closer to humanity's solar system. Dr. Youngman, Seojin called to the old physicist, who worked at the science station. Give me the numbers. Dr. Youngman Joe was ancient now, one of the few people old enough to remember when this project began. His hand shook as he checked his instruments, but his mind was still sharp. 47 star systems are now within our stellar manipulation network. Admiral, we can influence the positions of nearly 200 stars across this section of the galaxy. Seojin nodded with satisfaction. When his great-grandfather was young, humans had been trapped around one star. Now they controlled the movement of 200 stars. Sir, Captain Yuna said, the aliens who sent that message call themselves the Vegan Trade Confederation. According to their transmission, they went to sleep with their star in one location, and woke up to find it 17 light-years closer to us. 17 light-years overnight, Seojin laughed. We've been moving their star for 30 years. They just noticed now. Communications officer, Hound Park looked up from her station. Admiral, we have another problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our territory. Seojin's smile faded. How massive? 12 ships, sir. Each one is the size of a small moon. The same design we have in our historical records from the Day of Judgment. The Galactic Tribunal had returned. Red alert, Seojin ordered. Send word to all human installations. The aliens who imprisoned us are back. Within minutes, messages were flying across human space. On Mars, families gathered in underground shelters they had not used in decades. On Jupiter's floating cities, people looked up at the sky with worry. On Earth, the old barrier that had trapped them for over a century still glowed softly. But now there were new lights appearing beyond it. Admiral, Communications Officer Houn announced, incoming transmission from the Tribunal fleet. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was the same cold, mechanical tone that humans remembered from their grandparents' stories. Species designation: human. You will cease your cosmic vandalism immediately. You are disrupting established trade routes. You are threatening galactic stability. You are moving stars without permission from their rightful owners. Admiral Seojin looked around his bridge. His crew was young, born long after the Day of Judgment. They had grown up believing that moving stars was what humans did. They did not understand why anyone would object. Dr. Youngman, Seojin said quietly, are we violating the terms of our imprisonment? The old physicist checked his records. No, sir. The tribunal ordered us to remain within our solar system. They said nothing about rearranging our neighborhood. Seojin activated the response channel. His voice was calm and confident. Tribunal, vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Seojin Han of humanity. We have not violated our containment. We have remained within our solar system exactly as ordered. We have simply learned to make friends with the universe itself. There was silence from the alien ships. We have been good prisoners, Seojin continued. For 120 years, we stayed exactly where you put us. But you never said we couldn't invite our neighbors over for dinner. Captain Yuna whispered. Sir, their weapons are powering up. Seojin remained calm. Tribunal vessels, perhaps it is time for a proper conversation. We have been alone for over a century. We have had time to think about what you taught us. What we taught you, the alien voice responded. You taught us that power is not about where you can go, Seojin said. It is about what you can control. You thought you were punishing us by keeping us in one place. Instead, you taught us to make that one place the center of everything. On the screen, the star map showed their network of repositioned systems. 200 stars, dozens of civilizations, all connected by humanity's gravitational manipulation. Perhaps it is time to discuss the new rules of the galaxy. Admiral Mingi Yoon stood at the window of her command ship, looking out at a star that her great-grandmother had never seen. The star was called Kepler 442, and it had once been 37 light-years away from Earth. Now it hung in space, just outside their solar system. Brought close by decades of careful gravitational manipulation, Minji was the great-granddaughter of Dr. Yuna Choi, the brilliant woman who had first imagined moving stars. She had grown up hearing stories about the early days, when humans were trapped and desperate. Now, at 45 years old, she commanded the largest fleet in human history. Admiral, called Commander Jinwoo Lim from his station. The tribunal ships are positioning themselves in attack formation. Minji nodded calmly. She had been expecting this day for years. The aliens who had imprisoned humanity over a century ago had finally returned to see what their prisoners had accomplished. "Show me the tactical display," she ordered. The main screen, lit up with a three-dimensional map of local space. 12 massive alien ships hung in the darkness, just as threatening as they had been during the Day of Judgment. But everything else had changed. Where once there had been empty space between stars, now there was a network of connected star systems. Dozens of stars that had been scattered across the galaxy were now clustered together, held in place by humanity's gravitational technology. Each star was connected to the others by invisible threads of controlled gravity. Communications Officer Park Minji said, "Open a channel to the tribunal fleet." The cold, mechanical voice that had haunted human nightmares for generations filled the bridge. Species designation: human. Your containment has been violated. How have you spread your influence across dozens of star systems? This violates galactic law. Minji smiled. She had been practicing this conversation her whole life. "Tribunal Commander," she said, her voice steady and confident. "You wanted to teach us about power and consequences. We learned very well." "Impossible," the alien voice replied. "Your species was contained within your solar system. The barrier remains intact. How have you violated our judgment?" "We haven't violated anything," Mingi said. "We never left our prison. We just convinced the neighborhood to come visit us." She gestured to Commander Jinwoo, who updated the tactical display. Now it showed not just the current positions of the stars, but their original locations from over a century ago. The tribunal ships could see exactly what humanity had accomplished. "Your barrier still stands," Minji continued, pointing to the glowing wall of energy that still surrounded their original solar system. "We are still inside it, exactly as ordered, but the barrier is no longer relevant." The alien ships remained silent, trying to understand what they were seeing. "We learned to treat stars like ships," Minji explained. "We learned to use space itself like an ocean that can be folded and stretched. You caged us to keep us from reaching out to the galaxy." She paused, looking directly at the lead tribunal ship through her viewport. "Instead, we brought the galaxy to us." The silence stretched on for long minutes. Minji could imagine the confusion aboard the alien ships. They had expected to find broken humans begging for mercy. Instead, they found a species that had turned their punishment into the greatest engineering achievement in galactic history. "Commander Jinwoo," Minji said quietly, "show them the full network." The tactical display expanded, revealing the true scope of human accomplishment. Nearly 200 stars were now under human gravitational influence. Entire civilizations had been moved without their knowledge, brought closer to humanity's growing sphere of control. "Tribunal vessels," Mingi said, "you taught us that power is not about speed or technology. Real power is about control. You thought you were punishing us by trapping us in one place. Instead, you taught us to make that place the center of everything." The alien voice finally responded, but for the first time in recorded history, it sounded uncertain. "We, did not anticipate this possibility." "No," Minji agreed. "You saw us as violent children who needed to be locked away. You never imagined we might grow up to become something else entirely." She walked to the center of her bridge, where her officers could all hear her clearly. "For over 100 years, we have been good prisoners. We stayed exactly where you put us. We never broke your rules. But we also never stopped learning, never stopped growing, never stopped reaching for the stars. The tactical display now showed the tribunal ships surrounded by repositioned star systems. They were not trapped, but they were definitely outnumbered by the sheer scope of human influence. Now, Tribunal Commander, the question is not whether you will lift your barrier. The barrier doesn't matter anymore. The question is whether you want to negotiate with us as equals, or discover what happens when we start rearranging your stars. Next, the silence from the alien fleet stretched across space. Minji could feel the tension on her bridge as her crew waited for the response. Finally, the alien voice returned, but it was different now, smaller somehow, less certain. We did not anticipate this possibility. That, said Admiral Minji Yoon, great-granddaughter of the woman who had dreamed of moving stars, is why you should never underestimate a species that has learned to turn their limitations into weapons. The galaxy would never be the same again.